People, I welcome you today to an EarRead project special. Today I have a very special guest, and that's why I call it a special, because we don't do the podcast as much anymore because, we need obviously to create high quality content that is going to engage you as an individual to say, okay, no, but these subjects or these topics must be, really, really explored. And today I have a very great man, one that I've watched develop over the years, and now we are seeing him blossom into, I think what he has always wished, to achieve. And it's just a beautiful thing to witness when someone's, goals are actually coming, to fruition, and we see them unfold before our eyes. And this is the great Mahavatar. We call him Mahavatar, but his real name is Thabo Ramaine, and he's the founder of the Mythology Arts Foundation. He is the greatest actor for me in our region, which is West Rand. He has done a lot of work just as far as community development is concerned. He organized camps back in the day. He has been immersed in the art world for quite a long time, and just, like I said, just seeing him grow before my eyes has been a beautiful thing, and yeah, it gives one hope to say, okay, we can do this. Ndade Mahavatar.
Ndade.
How are you, Ndade?
I know I'm good. When I was young.
I'm well, and that.
Yeah.
We are just glad that you made it, and you made it to us and to come, give us this special interview, and so that we can engage you about your recent production. You were involved in, obviously, and that Wally Serote. On Skhahlel'U, which is a praise poem that actually pays tribute to the great O.R. Tambo. Because we had the book in the Khutzon Literary Club, and Khosi had the book for some time. And when I saw it at his house, I was like, but Mahavatar is actually doing this thing, and we have the book. So I thought, how about we actually organize a conversation with Mahavatar and just ask him about just the process and what was happening to him as he was going through and embodying the words that Wally Serote, and really living sort of like a piece of OR's life and that the Serote's life at the same time, and unfortunately, because we live very far from the cities, right? It was very difficult for us to organize and come and see the play, logistically, it's not, how can I put this? It's not advantageous. It hurts, logistically, but we really wanted to be there. And we saw you, with the great Thabo Mahavatar, on your posts. And it was like, oh, this is really major, because Thabo Mahavatar also wrote the foreword to the book.
Yeah.
Now, enough about, the introduction. I just want to, understand how you landed, in the role. This play. How did it come about? What was, what happened? Did Jesus call you again that kinako now? Prepare yourself, or what? How did you land the role?
Okay, so how I got to be part of this amazing piece of it's a tribute actually to Oliver Tambo's Skhahlel'U. So I got discovered through a piece I was doing at the Market Theatre called The Blacksmith. So the director of Skhahlel'U, which is Ausintsieng Mokgoro, she's the one is actually directing the piece, and also she's doing the adaptation into a theater production, because originally this is a praise poetry that was written by Professor Wally. So the book now, it's adapted into a theater play. So they worked on the project, but at that time, they were not yet actually doing casting. They were still actually undergoing through the script development and breaking down into now the adaptation. So she came and to watch the blacksmith that I was doing. It's a beautiful African piece that contains also a rich history of where we're coming from. She got impressed, and she was like, she saw, in fact, the style of delivery of the piece of blacksmith, and the script, the text, the information, the music, the dance, whatever that was put together in that piece, it was best representing what the production of Skhahlel'U Tambo had to bring to the people. And then she was like, this is actually a relevant person to embody the lead role and to embody the journey of Professor Wally working with OR as well, and expressing this journey through these different elements of art, of like creative delivery of theater. She was so impressed. After the show, she came to me, we met, and then we discussed about that. And then later on, she called me and said, you know what, I want you to be on board. Now, I want you to actually come and be part of the OR Tambo tribute, the production, because I feel that you are actually the right fit for this kind of a work. And you are actually a piece of a cloth that was cut specifically to be sewed and joined into this holistic type of a piece of a fashion that had to be really branded to the people. And it's like, no matter what, I want you to come on board. And that's how we actually met, and that's how we started working, and that's how I got to be part of that.
There. Wow, that's great. Like because the blacksmith puts you on this play, right? But the likes of Mount Avila, which is your past work, which I've also like loved to watch, because at least that one I got to see it. It's so beautiful that just to see, where the blacksmith has actually learned it, but so my the follow-up question would be, so you get the script, right? So now they send the script to you.
Yeah.
So you get the words, and now you sit with them. And what is the process for you as you are going through like what Ntate Wally has written for you for OR, as you are going through the script?
Yeah, so after I've received the script, so I've received the first draft of the script.
Yeah.
It was about, surely first draft was about 30 pages. And I'm looking at this like 30 pages, and in every scene I'm there, and every scene I'm actually doing a monologue. It is a very long monologue. But that's because the monologues were there because they were extracted from the original text, which is the book.
Yes.
So it was basically reciting the book itself, word by word,
Wow.
So I've received the script, and I went through the script. I read the script, and just to get a feel of the writing of Professor Wally and what was the poetry about, what is the story about, and what is it that the director needed to achieve, and what is my expectations as well.
Yeah.
And I was looking at different roles that were there actually in the story.
But how were you feeling? Did you feel maybe sometimes inadequate? Did you ever had moments like, wow, this is like Ntate Wally Serote, this is OR, this is a big production? How were you feeling?
Yeah, it was at first value, it was overwhelming. it was kind of so where do I start and then carrying this work, but I knew that if I was brought here, that means I'm entrusted to carry this work, and they trust me that I will carry this work because they saw me as a resource. So for me, it was that thing of I need to start immersing myself into the thought of the writer, which is I went through that process. And there was a time where we sat and had a conversation with Professor Wally just to pick his thought. And from there, going back and say, if I was him and writing this book, working with OR, how would be my personal journey? So I had to go through that. Even before memorizing the lines, I had to understand what was the intention of the writer and what was the journey of the writer, so that I walk that journey, whether through visualization, whether through embodiment, whether through feeling and emotion. So I had to take the text and make it my own personal experience so that I can understand the story better. This piece of a creative history of that praises a giant.
Yeah, because the thing is, it's not just a creative piece. As I was reading it myself, I noticed that this is actually a lived experience.
Yeah.
There's parts where it becomes very sad. You're like, like how can even one live through this and, and come out, on the other side as just a calm person, as OR, as he describes OR. Because he says, he was a very calm, spirited man who was, always like he took this struggle very lightly and he motivated them as they sort of like lost hope and they were in these dark places and they were losing hope. OR would come and he would sort of like sweep them off their feet, not necessarily in a romantic way, but he would restore them and they would see the intention to continue. You understand? And believe and he goes into very deep stuff. So now you have gotten the words. Now you have gone through the self introspection of hey, they trust me, these people. It means I have what it takes. So now you are going through the rehearsal process, and now you are beginning to embody the work. And how is the process to you? How are you dealing with the words and you living them out on stage, for your audience?
So for me, when it comes to the words, and actually when it came, I didn't struggle that much because I already have a technique in terms of how I memorize script. So theatrically, I would just use my theater tools without any deepening, whether the character or whatever. It will just be, okay, now I memorize, I utilize my tools. The time we moved into rehearsal, we had to define this play, whether should it be political or should it be personal and spiritual? Because we had to draw the line. I was also questioning the director to say, which approach are we going? The political, because then if we go in the political way, we know he was also a political giant. If we're going towards the political way, then it becomes a protest theater. So, which is okay. We can go the protest theater so that if, let's say, I attempt the piece, I attempt it in the protest theater approach.
Exactly.
But we had to find the story that drives and celebrate OR, not necessarily celebrating his political journey, focusing on one side of his journey, which is, that was, okay, his role, it could be his career and all of that. But his personal, him as a person, his personal life, his journey as Motu, and as a man of this nation, as a father who had children, as a husband who had a wife. Because that's the side of the story that most people would miss. Because Bashibile only the political side.
That's true.
So we had to actually bring that part of a life, and also his spirit, because he was a spiritual person. That was one of the big significance about him. He was a spiritual person. He was a spiritual healer as well. And so
that's new to me.
We had to bring that element of spirituality and spread it across the show. That means the way we had to attempt the show had to be spiritual. So now I had to approach it in a spiritual
Tap
way,
into
because
those spiritual things.
because now there was no way I could really tap deeper into who OR is. So even the conversation in the book, for me as an actor, the conversation was more spiritual, was more of tapping into that the spiritual realm, and starting feeling his presence, starting to see his image, and starting to question him, starting to walk the journey with him through where he was born, Bizana, in Kantolo, wherever, and we walk with him even across this nation. I question him to say, OR, can you see that the nation is out of joint? Which string or chord should we have fingered for us to play a harmony?
That's true.
And I saw him to say, look, like lefatshe la rona le ashwa. And so that had to be the internal conversation, spiritually so, than just attempting it in a text in a political way. So it had to be that journey.
Wow.
Throughout the rehearsal.
Wow. So as you are rehearsing with your director, doesn't that Serote visit once in a while? You are having conversations with him.
Yeah.
And he's sort of like taking you through the work, because he's basically understands the work better than everyone, because these are actually his words. These are actually what he lived, and these are his experiences. And how are the conversations? What are you taking in from him and that Serote as he sort of like mentors you through it?
So within that Serote, when he was coming through the creation process, in fact, he was not influencing much on the creative work. So it was more up to the director to actually unpack the story to us. Because when it's an adaptation to a theater play, it's gonna be maybe different to say, take this book, go to Poetry Africa and read it. Then I could sit with the writer. But now it's different when it comes to a theater show, because we had to unpack it creatively. Yeah, now when he came, we had a very nice conversation in terms of how did he know OR personally. Like we had to put politics aside to say personally, how was the relationship? So we had such conversation. We had also the conversation of his role in the MK, his role politically, and the journey with him OR, the journey with him Abu Thabo Mbeki, and all of that. And so that we can understand better what was his role, his influence of going exile, his influence of fighting for the rights of African people, and his role for him to become a poet so that he can express the history, the journey,
kind of,
that he went through. Yeah,
because I feel like it's very important how he actually documented the whole thing, because it's not like it's a praise poem. That you mentioned the spirituality and that the OR, so which I find that like very fascinating, because you never really saw him in any sort of spiritual setting. The images that I know of him are usually him in a suit. Understand? So how was he exploring the spirituality so high? What was, how was he a pastor? Was he what exactly, how spiritual was he?
It was more of an African spirituality, an African healer, an African spiritual, because he was also rooted in his culture, and one of the components that was driving his spirituality was music as well. Because he was a person who really loved music. He was a person also who was driven by music. So there's a part in the book where the writer says actually to OR that, is it why you were also a song master? Because of the spirit in the song, and That's where Professor Wells speaks about that we sang your name and we sing in your name.
Yes.
Singing from the depths where memories, love and desire, faith and hope resides. You know, and so that was also one of the components that drove his journey spiritually. But it was more of a cultural person who embraced, you know, the ancestral gifting. And it's one of the things that we had to bring in the play to show his side of spirituality. So in the play, we show his side of spirituality, which is more culturally, it's more traditionally, it's an ancestral gifting that he had to carry through, and we had to bring it up on stage.
So did he ever go through the rite of passage of, you know, becoming a healer, or just, you know, basically exploring the gift, in fact, embracing the gift and, you know, and becoming it? Did he ever go through the rite of passage?
He did, but not that much.
Oh, yeah.
Because as a man who was more focused into politics,
focused
in educating himself, to strengthen his mind educationally so that he can be a strategist, so that he can understand policies and systems better and all of that. I think it's one of the journey that clouded mostly his side of that spirituality for him to channel it fully, but he didn't channel it that much fully because of that political journey that he had to go through. But he was a person also who really respected spirituality, African spirituality as well, who respected as well God and religion, you know, because you would, as you go through the book, especially almost in the last part of the the section, Professor Wally also asked OR to say, no, in fact, it's not a question, but it was a statement that said, you said God is not the religion and God is not a church. And then he asked him to say, are you with us as God was with our ancestors? You know, so Tambo knew as well to say you cannot limit, there's no limitation to God, because God is not just a church, it's just a religion. You know, so it's the higher power that resides within us. And he understood that. And that was the part of also the spirituality that he had
embodied. Like I'm just like, you know, really honored to actually conduct this interview about OR, because you know, I mean, I think he's the one leader in the movement of, you know, the I don't want to say the name of the party, but like he basically is the longest, I think.
Yeah.
How do I put this in English? But he was the one who actually led the ANC for the longest time.
Yeah.
And you know how he sort of like appeared to have done it with ease, according to, it seemed easy to him, like it appeared easy to Ntate Wally. You know, that's how he always, and he always, in the book, he keeps on saying, how did you do it? Or, you know, because I think he was speaking to just all the dark moments, you know, that he had experienced, you know, whether it was Robben Island, whether it was, you know, and everything like that, and him being in exile, being away from his home in Bizana, and so on, you know. So now you have rehearsed the play. Now you have embodied the words. Now you have to take it now to the people. Now you are on stage. The Market Theatre, it's the night, it's the opening night. So what is happening now? How are you feeling? And how is the first night for you? Like, what happens? How are people reacting to your, you know, to the work? What is up? Like you from start to the end of the show, what is going on with Mahavatar and, you know, OR and Tate Wally and the great Thabo Mahavatar, you know, whom I saw on your pictures. Yeah. How is that whole thing?
Yeah, for the opening, I was actually ready for the opening. I love openings because I'm like, yeah.
Oh, you are an opening person.
As a performer, I'm like, no. For me, I was excited and all of that. But anyway, being nervous or kind of having those stomach butterflies, it's always natural. As for a performer, even if you can be experienced for many years, there's always that nervousness to say, which is to us, it's a green light. It says now you're going.
It's gone.
So when they said, okay, the former president Thabo Mbeki will be coming to see the show, it's like, whoa, okay. And then it's like, also the ambassador of Kenya will also be here. And it's like, yo. It's like now the pressure is getting, it's like, yo.
What?
And so it was kind of, so our first early call time, so we had to prepare, and Professor Wally was there. And then so it's just 20 minutes before opening. So then they came and announced that, okay, the former president is here. So he's about to enter. So just be on standby. But the thing is, it was a lot of things were happening because we had to move out of everyone had to move out of the theater because it's a big person coming. So soldiers had to come into the theater with dogs searching, all of that. The dog unit was there.
Now you are beginning to see, this is really happening. This is
it's like, now he's really here. When we see soldiers coming in, searching, and say, no, guys, relax, it's a procedure. We just want to go through this so that we make sure that the former president is fully protected and all of that. So we had to go out. They even brought that thing, I want to scan Yakodi airport. Especially for at the door, put it there.
At the door.
Whoever walks in there had to scan and search and do all of that, I was like, oh, but anyway, I don't know how he's going to take it. I know Professor Wally loves the show. So I don't know now his mate with Lenkajwang. So he said there actually. So we opened the first show. We pushed the first. I pushed actually the first show. I had to make sure that I grind. I go deep. I hit. And the first. So the show was beautiful, and we even actually got a feedback that the former president Thabo Mbeki loved the show and he would love to come back to actually meet the cast and have a discussion and that time we didn't know what he wanted to say. He just said no, he wants to meet the cast, and then he wants to just have a short discussion with the cast, and then also he would love to organize a gala dinner for the cast. And it's like, we don't know what maybe he's gonna lecture us in terms of so yeah, so but the opening made an impression that he made him to come back. We sat down. He came. We sat down. I think a day before the last show he came, and we sat down, and in fact he gave the word of appreciation in terms of what we did with the work that Professor Wally to say we did justice to the work of Prof, and we did justice to the tribute of OR, to the life of OR, and he was impressed to say no.
You guys really did outdid yourself, and he was just that impressed.
So he was even telling his colleagues to say, no, you have to come in and just cancel all your plans. You must come.
You must come and see this. He was now marketing the show.
He was like, no, he was, one of the funny things. So he was there, and then he looked at me and was like, hey, but other people have been overworked here. And it's only because I was playing the main so I was doing a whole lot of things because I was driving the show in three components: that's movement, text, and musical. So it was a whole lot of that. So with him, he saw it as like, hey, you've been overworked.
This man,
but he was like, no, but one thing I saw, you have stamina. You were consistent. You were like executing the show so beautifully, and it's like, I think that's why you were brought to that role, because they knew you could.
They knew you could actually carry the work through.
So
and
really
how are you feeling when this man is saying these things to you?
Man,
because you are getting a review from the former president of South Africa.
And he kept on saying that even when we had the first photo session, when we do photography, and he came to me and said, young man, it's like, your work is beautiful. Wow. Like, you're a beautiful performer. Yeah. And how you carried it, like, it's amazing. Like, your talent is just amazing. Be humble, be disciplined, do all of that. And, so, like, he was so much impressed by my delivery and how I carried, even Professor Wally himself. And say, man, look, no. This should not be the end of the journey. You
were having good conversations with great people.
Like, man, so even Professor still want us to have a conversation even after the project of OR, because he says, no, even after this journey of the show, we don't need to part ways. We have to build a relationship, because there's still works that he feels where they need to go out there
to be lived on stage.
And he needs people who are relevant to tell these stories. And it was like, you are the person who's really relevant to carry these stories.
So now, well, you obviously killed this in the middle of a very dark time for South Africa, right? And the founders of this movement, which happened to be Ndate O.R. Tambo, the likes of Thabo Mbeki and President Thabo Mbeki, let me say it right, and that Professor Serote. But now you also have this reality that South Africa is facing dark times, and a lot of people are not happy with the way things are and the way the ruling party as it stands is doing things. Does that interfere with your process? Does that interfere with your conscience or moral stance or anything like that?
In terms of what, the performance wise?
Performance wise, that's you as an artist, because you are living the story of the founders of the ruling party, and the ruling party as it stands right now, it's really not pleasing the public. It's really, in fact, the way other people see it, the ruling party is in a bad condition, because there are factions within it, and there's meaning wars within it, and it has interfered with the health of the economy. We are facing all of these power cuts. I don't know. I wonder if Alaba black out during one of those nights.
We didn't.
Luckily,
because anyway, Comrade President was there, so everything had to be in order.
Yeah.
But like, other than that, it was there's a part in the book, I think I spoke about it earlier, that speaks about our country, it's out of joint, and so Professor Wally foresee this situation where South Africa is, and this way in the play we actually playing with a flag, and the flag of the organization in which OR was leading. We know it, the ruling party, and then so there's an expression I'm doing with the flag, the actual flag, and this flag, where I'm trying to fold it, it's not folded. I'm trying to, it's falling. It's slipping out of my head. It's not in order. I can't find the measurement, the scaling, the corners of this. It was an expression of, we don't know where this organization is. We don't know its order. We don't know what it stands for. We don't know. And I did a quote, which it was actually the quote that had to be there outlined in the show, that says, I was saying, you said that it's only the African National Congress that can destroy itself. Yes. And I did an expression of the flag falling. Up until when I folded it was more like, now we're restoring his legacy. And at last we quoted the questionnaire, Professor Wally, to say, if you were here in the hour of history, what would you say and what would you do?
That's the last stanza, actually.
That's the last.
That's the last
That's what closes,
sentences. That's a closing statement.
So in my process of rehearsing this, embodying it, there was a time I got frustrated, like doing this expression. In fact, the expression came out of the frustration of the reality where we are now in this country, the situation where we are, and politically, how does it serve the people? And like really, we are out of joint. And then I had to find that it had to motivate me to say we are in a mess because of this. And how do I embody that on stage, and how does it affect me? I'm already affected even way before I started knowing this play, this book. So I had to draw from that experience of being affected by the context of what is happening in South Africa and express that strongly on stage.
Powerful. I just want to check if everything is fine. Because we just had a power cut. We just had a power cut and everything like that. So now I just want to know, I see you still have the words with you. You can actually repeat the words.
Yeah.
The script is still in your head. So what, are there words for you that really stood out? And, like as you were saying them, and what would be those words now, like right now? Like, is there a phrase, or is there like an extract, an excerpt from the poem that stood out for you, and then you still remember right now that you can repeat, and maybe we can go a little bit into it and dissect it?
Main.
Yeah.
The main, like I don't know which one, but I think let me talk about almost the last part, because that's it's more spiritual, and it's more questioning.
Yeah.
And because there's a part where Professor Wally questions about the ancestors, and we do it actually on stage. I was doing it with Princess, where I question as a form of Professor Wally to say, do ancestors have memories?
Mm.
And that part, on its own, that do they have memories? Because we've been working with him, it's of course he's being an ancestor and all of that, but there's a question to say, do they have memories? And that to me was kind of memories in terms of mihopolo, in terms of, do they remember those that they left, or do they still carry their past life in their
conscience, whatever the spirit or whatever, or is it left with the brain? Because the brain is the one that holds the memories. That's a very interesting question. And so how did you sort of like, I guess, deal with that question? Did you maybe come up with your own suggestions, ideas around it?
Yeah, I did. Because for me, it was kind of a very interesting part that actually became one of the elements I had to use throughout the play to actually demonstrate the journey that I walked with OR. To say, if then they have so I had to answer it. It was just a rhetorical question, but I had to answer it to say they do have memories, because theatrically there was a flashback of him appearing in the midst of the people, and flashback of him operating as our comrade president and all of that. And then me, I was observing him when he was doing all of that. So for me, it was more like the impartation of these memories that he left with me. And he left, but I still had that made me to be influenced to document this journey in the book, to write this book, because the memories had to live within me. visualizing him, seeing him. You know, there's a part where he says that I smile as I try to imitate your integrity. You know, when you pace up and down, you walk and you stop and all of that. So the imitation of who he is.
The posture and
the posture.
Basically the composure, the likes of OR. Because I think people really take for granted, you know, the role these men played, you know, because it was not just, you know, entertainment. It was real. They had to appear a certain way every day. And that means, like, for instance, you are explaining the posture because he actually describes the posture in the book. And he talks about how he sat, and he wouldn't just sit like normally, you know, how we would slouch on the chair, you know. He describes how he would, you know, have his back straight. And so, like, in my head, as I'm imagining OR sitting, you know, and thinking, and how he was calm and his smile and he's just his aura and how he presented himself and how he had to maintain it for the time he was president of the ANC.
Man, the maintaining part of it, you know, and we had this conversation with TK because TK was playing OR.
Oh.
So I was playing more of Professor and then he was playing OR. So I also had to build chemistry with TK because I was like, I'm the one who's telling your story and you are OR as well. And we had this conversation where there's a scene where we do where he gets frustrated because he had to go exile and leave his family. For many years. And it was like, it was an emotional moment, whatever, and all of it. He was alone in the office. And so when one of the soldiers entered, he had to retain the composure. And that's because it was a must that he should not show emotions because it was a sign of weakness. You know, that he had to show to the soldiers that you cannot show emotion because that's a sign of weakness. You must always keep your composure, your stage. You also always had to stand your ground, so that even whatever that distracts you emotionally, mentally, you are still there. You are still focused. You are still, you know. So for me, it was also the powerful moment that you went through the whole frustration of, I had to deal with this, deal with Adile Tambo and all of that, but still, when he's among the comrades, he had to stand as the comrade president, as the leader, so that he shows that here there's no really we don't succumb to weakness, you know.
You know, I think the director of the play, when he chose you, he kind of like saw that in you, because in the years that I've known you, like, I've never seen you emotional, right? I've never seen you emotional. You have always kept your composure and you have always been disciplined and really, you know, diligent. Your movements, the way you carry yourself, you know, just the way you present yourself. I think that's how the director was very aware of that, and I think he chose you because he actually saw that, and because now you are describing this scene where OR has to go to, you know, to exile. Because I mean, as I was reading the book, I was thinking about Madiba. I was thinking about, you know, Sisulu. You understand? I was thinking about them. I'm like, it's like, would I actually manage? You understand?
Yeah.
Because I think we take light what those men had to stand up against. Understand? Because they had to they had to keep the composure. They couldn't show weakness. They couldn't
all the time. Yeah.
They couldn't come across as, and you must understand, or at the time, the government and the Times, they didn't care about the people. In fact, I'm sure they were very undermined. They were like bananyatseya, like wherever they were in those exile countries, how do you live with strangers for such a long time? And most of the countries, some of the countries are basically, the colonizers' country. You understand? So now you are sitting there and you are sharing with these people, or they actually have given you accommodation or whatever, and you wonder how they are treating you and how they were treating them sometimes, because I was watching an interview with the lady Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie when she was in France, and she was expressing her, like, even though she's still an international writer, competent bestseller, like, you understand, she still faces those things.
Yeah.
And you sit there and I don't think the youth understands just the sacrifice. Just the sacrifice every day and be a certain person. You understand? Because you are carrying the hope of the people. Because Bontate Wally relied on OR.
Yeah.
Because they drew strength from him. Because if there was no OR, if there was no Matiba, they probably would have faltered. They probably would have said no. You understand?
Yeah.
But those men were like, no. And so there's a part where he says even the stench of the blood, and I think he speaks about the stench of the blood that stuck to their hair, that stuck to their eyebrows, and they could smell the urine in there, because I think he was describing a scene, when they were in a cell or something.
Yeah.
And just those things, I think it's things that we overlook. So with that said, I would ask you, so now you have done this play, right? You have finished this play, and it's like it's the last show. You are done, you are going home or whatever, maybe, or you are going to an after party or whatever where you celebrate, the success. But the after party is not that for me. But now you are sitting, it's just post show, right? You are sitting in your room and the show is done. And how are things there? Oh, look at me dropping the book. I'll leave it. We'll see.
What the feeling?
Yeah, the feeling after the show,
Yeah.
post show.
Yeah, so there were different feelings. So there's a feeling of the post performance, after the effect of after performance, because also the performance doesn't leave the body immediately.
Yeah.
You still carry it. It might take you a week still, it's still in you. It's still, when you wake up, it's still that call time. Oh, I need to practice that. I need to say this line. Even the songs, I was still singing them. So that was still me trying to transition out of the work, because I had to start another work anyway. But also it was a moment of reflection. When I was sitting, I was like, "Yo, this has been an amazing journey and historical journey." And because the process that I've enjoyed and loved the most is the rehearsal. The rehearsal is the one that I love it more than performance. Performance is just basically the I think 1% of,
it's like
of
just meeting deadlines.
It's like okay, it's me and the audience now. I just need to give. But the creation process, it was so beautiful, because as much as we were shaping the work was shaping us.
You are shaping you. And that's where I want to go to. And how did it shape you? Because like I said, it's post show. Now you're done. How has it shaped you? What are you thinking about? The ruling party, the role of the leaders. What are you thinking?
Because with me, it was more of looking at the journey that Professor Wally or Tambo took, and how I've also learned about Oliver Kaizana, Reginald Tambo, that I didn't know that much deeper before I did this play. I knew there was Tambo, but I didn't know that he was like
such
humble, and she loved behind the scenes one thing I've learned about, like, when I said after the show, is like, one thing I've learned about Kaizana, Reginald Tambo. He was always on a spotlight. He was working behind this, but he was powerful. Was always working underground, and I've discovered that he was the one who was pushing Mandela. You know, he was the one mentoring Mandela. He was the one who was pushing him forward, and in him he was stepping back. And when people even were coming to him, say, Mr. President, and he was like, no, I'm not your president. Your president is in Robben Island. You know, so he was inaugurating him already before he was
even released.
You know, and such a character, such a strong character that works behind it, but still powerful. It was something that I said and was like, yes.
How many
people are like this in the world? How am I learning also that kind of a character, that kind of a behavior, that kind of a mentality?
Yeah, because as you say it, I think you resonate with it because in a way you are it. Because I've seen you perform, you know, when you start becoming, you know, a pro in your craft, right? Now the platforms start to change, right? Now you are no longer performing at certain venues. Now you perform at certain venues. But what I've noticed about you is that you perform. It doesn't matter, okay?
Yeah.
That's what I've noticed about you. It's like always like you're like the work is what matters to you. It's not really whatever the decoratives, you know.
Yeah.
And I think you resonate with it because of that. But what does it mean to you? Because I get it was viable Tom Cruise. Now you're like, no, I'm not gonna do that small theater anymore. Yeah.
No, it's a humbling experience, and one of the things that I've been always trying to strive is always being humble, even when whichever space I'm brought into, I can still give the best. I can still not compromise my character, you know. And as you say, it's true, because certain things that I've learned through this book and through the journey of OR, there were things that I could relate to. Say, actually, maybe I thought I was this kind of a person, but actually, I was exercising, you know, something that had to always maintain and build my integrity.
True.
And always learning not to compromise myself, which is OR was not even compromising, you know, himself. And it's one thing that had to also be a reminder to say, remember who you are.
Who you are.
You know, remember who you are, and then always stay humble. Always strive to become better. Don't arrive to say, so
I'm here now. I'm the man.
Yeah, you know, I'm the man. So matter theater, matter. No, I'm still learning. I'm still finding. I'm still willing to learn from anyone. Be humbled, and I'm still striving to give the best to even any director who will give me a role, cast me. I will pour my heart out. I will just bring the best. I won't say, man, why and I'm
why is this person?
No,
now nagging.
So it has to be always a fresh work that I have to do. If you tell a script, I have to make sure I go thorough. It's obvious.
I'm just gonna.
I have to go thorough, and one of the things through that of being so much analytical and making sure that you attempt something with cautious and with being careful. It's one of the things also I've learned with OR, that even when he received the document from his comrade, he would not just run and sign. He would go through page by page to make sure
that everything
you know,
is the way it should
be. The way it should be. And then from there he signs and I say, okay. So that's how I attempt the work, going through it carefully.
So now what comes into mind, and this is probably going to lead us to, the closure.
Yeah.
Is, do you think we will ever have leaders like the ORs within the ruling party? And not even within the ruling party alone, but within just South Africa. Mm-hmm. How is leadership looking for you?
It's the true leaders, men, have passed. We no longer have leaders. We have political analyzers. We have business people. We don't have leaders, because leadership doesn't only start when you start going through a constitution of the country and policies and all of that. It starts with the character and the integrity. And I think our leaders lacks integrity, because that's one. They can have policies, they can have constitution, they can have all of this thing, strategies, but the integrity to say this is the character that defines me, to understand Hore, I'm also a person. I understand what people are going through, and these are my people, and I should not steal from them. I should not oppress them through the hard situations that I create economically, politically, that people are going through, whether especially service delivery.
Yeah,
it's people are oppressed by poverty itself. It's no longer about the colonizer and the white man
anymore,
but it's the circumstances that was created, through the leadership that we have, and so through that, I think the character is being defeated already. The integrity have been defeated. We no longer have leaders. Our leaders, they now working on the spotlight. They pushing the manifestos.
They're celebrity politicians.
Yeah. So, but they're not really putting right people who can also lead in a rightful manner and work for the people, put the people first. So for me, I don't think there are leaders like that. And especially after we've done this piece, I'm like, no, there's no way.
This was the end.
Like it was like, no.
So, but what if we were to try and inspire another, how would we maybe say we're like, okay, let's inspire a new generation of leaders, right? How would we inspire it? Like, how would you go about it? Because I feel like you are, in a way, your diligence, just the way you carry yourself. It's for me, it's in a way, in your field, you are a leader, right? And I see your character and how you carry yourself, and I see, okay, if my son was to be an actor, I would want my son to be an actor under you, or an individual like yourself. What would we? Because us here in the EarRead, in the Theatrical Club, we believe that we need to have a people that is informed in order for us to begin even scratching the surface about our liberation and about our well-being as a people and our economy. So for us, it's like read first, seek knowledge first, and then no, I'm not gonna say the words. Yeah. Seek knowledge first, and then repair after. You understand?
Yeah.
How would you go about? How would you, if like maybe no mentor, understand, and you have this young boy, and you are directing them, how would it look like for you?
So for me to have another Tambo, I think for me, I believe leaders are not chosen through elections.
Yeah,
are not chosen through parliament. For somebody to lead, I believe they don't need such platform. I believe the true leadership starts even here, how you influence the next person, how we ignite each other. Number one, how you carry yourself around people. It doesn't have to be a large number. It doesn't have to be a country, but how are you influencing your community?
Your immediate.
How do you transform it? And so through that, if we can play such roles individually and influencing the next person, obviously the next person will influence another person. If we can, I think, build the society that ignites each other, learns from each other, influences each other in a positive way, in a manner that somebody can learn practically from a person demonstrating with their own life, and making sure that they start claiming a small territory to transform it, so that that territory can able to spread and transform even others. And I believe that truly that is not just you doing every work to transform. No, it's how do you transform one person to transform the other, and that one transforming the other. So it starts as just a spark, and it become this huge flame that can influence even communities. I think if we can start influencing really our community out of just the policies and politics and whatever, and knowing and remembering who we actually are. So if we carry the knowledge, let that knowledge be spread out, let it be imparted even to the next generation, so that we see practically how we can really not just transform this community, but also transform ourselves. Yes. So I think if we can have the key of saying, okay, I've transformed myself, this is how I see the world. Now, here's the way in which you can transform. So the more we transform ourselves, Rona, within ourselves, we can able to influence even that
outside,
throughout. And that we can kind of have a growing movement of it can be a revolution, because again, they can never be, I think, freedom without revolution. Yeah. And the revolution, it is that process.
It's that slow process that begins with the individual.
That begins with the individual. So I think the individual is the one that needs to be targeted, that needs to be led, that needs to be transformed, so that they themselves could understand that they carry the leadership within themselves.
And they don't have to depend on a certain person with a suit behind a podium with a microphone and, representing quote unquote party. It doesn't have to be.
They cannot. So that we also lose the selfishness as well.
That's true.
If we lose if we don't only think for ourselves, but let us think for the people holistically. That's true. I believe that we can build each other. We can really rise each other than to say, every man for himself.
Every man.
This man already that. But how do we start even small? How do we start looking at our environment and transforming it?
Yeah, because in the book, it actually begins with the environment.
Yeah.
The opening part of the book, he actually starts with, in fact, can I read that part? Because I highlighted the part. And in the part, he says, they did not create their dwellings, nor the chores of their design, nor desire. Yeah. They are programmed by profit and surplus, like a machine in a monotonous crackling sound, vomiting products of men and women in palaces far away from the site of their factories. And so, and he keeps making reference to the mountains of Mbizana and how we coexisted with nature and lived with the reptiles and the birds that sang, and he builds a beautiful narrative around it as well, which is obviously, even the houses that we were living in, right? Because we were so close to the natural environment, and we coexisted in harmony with it before, obviously, the invasion, right?
And the interesting part, even before that, he speaks about the Khoi and the Sun.
The Khoi and the
language
sun.
of the Khoi and the Sun.
Yes.
The language of Serote and Xhosa. And then he says, English and Africans locked horns, fighting for a space in the mind that molded the national question of the people and the land.
That's true. Powerful. I read that part, Leo, and I think I highlighted it. It's just that I just highlighted a lot of stuff, but I didn't want it to be like sort of like a critical breakdown, because I feel like everybody should get the book and read it.
Yeah.
And I will be able to go through it and really, get the value in the book and understand just how difficult it is to lead the people, to just do the right thing. Just, in fact, not even to lead the people, just to do the right thing.
That's the right thing.
You understand? Man, I'm so blessed to have you here. So in closing, Tate Mahavatar, I want you, to ask you a question that we normally ask. This is Sisinzuki's question. Sisinzuki used to ask a lot of people who came to the podcasts.
Yeah.
And this question was to say, so this book, Yantate Serote, if you were to describe it in 3 words, what would those words be?
In 3 words.
Yeah. In 3 words. Nothing more than that.
Okay, I think I have those 3 words.
Yeah.
I have those 3 words, and they're there in the book.
They're there in the book.
Batho Botho Pele.
Batho Botho Pele. No, that's great. Date, I would like to thank you again for doing this with us. It was a pleasure actually going through Date Serote's book with you, and I would advise people to go read it. And even if possible, if the play happens to come back closer maybe to us, that we can go see it, because it would be great to see it in live and lived on stage, because I guess maybe it will clarify a lot of stuff for other people who have read it.
It's a must see. It's a must see. Like, really, people should follow this play, and it should also, even without this play, even they can go to Freedom Park, and some of the things that are there, they can learn, that are documented in Freedom. In some of the works that Professor Wally, they're there in Freedom Park.
All right.
Not Freedom Park in Soweto, the one in Pretoria, the museum,
the
museum, heritage
Freedom
site.
Oh, okay.
Where you find all those Vivane, and where you find the eternal flame.
Oh yeah.
Where you find a whole lot of interesting, history about our people of South Africa.
Interesting. So with that said, ladies and gentlemen, that was the great Thabo Ramaine, aka Mahavatar. I call him Harvey, and we leave it here. Thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe. Bye.